Canu. I want to thank you for coming. And before I give you the floor, I would like Catherine to say some words and thank you very much for this lovely organization. Thank you.
Donc, je voulais vous introduire le secrétaire général, M. Hammadoun Touré, qui est secrétaire général de l'UIT depuis 2001, qui a été réélu pour un mandat de 4 ans en 2010. M. Touré va nous exposer ses différents objectifs qu'il souhaite atteindre durant son mandat et particulièrement nous parler de l'événement Télécom UIT qui va se tenir à Genève du 24 au 27 de ce mois. Et le docteur Touré parle plusieurs langues, le français, l'anglais, l'espagnol et le russe, et il se tient à votre disposition pour répondre aux questions dans ces langues après.
Mon espagnol est très limité. Je sais seulement présenter les fleurs aux dames. Las flores son como tú, bellas y delicadas. Je voudrais juste, avant de commencer, juste porter une petite correction. Parce qu'elle vient de dire que j'ai commencé, je suis président depuis 2001. Moi, je suis président depuis 2007. J'ai été élu en 2006 et réélu en 2010 pour un deuxième mandat. On a des mandats de 4 ans. Et c'est justement au cours de la conférence de plénipotentiaires l'année dernière à Guadalajara, au Mexique, que j'ai eu l'occasion de présenter mon nouvelle vision de télécom, en fait. Donc, le forum télécom dont nous allons parler aujourd'hui rentre dans ce cadre-là de cette nouvelle vision de télécom. Et les États membres ont été gentils à accepter ma nouvelle approche. Et donc, cette fois-ci, ce serait un grand test pour nous. Bon, en réalité, j'ai essayé de tester un petit peu ce que je voulais faire en pendant le dernier télécom en 2009. C'était mon premier télécom en tant que secrétaire général. Comme vous le savez, l'événement se tenait tous les 3 ans. Et l'une des modifications que nous avons amenées à l'événement cette année, cette fois-ci, c'est que ce sera un événement annuel à partir de cette année. Parce que 3 ans, c'est trop long dans notre industrie. Et ça posait beaucoup de problèmes de marketing. Et aussi, ça nous rendait vraiment un peu à la traîne. Ça nous mettait un peu à la traîne concernant l'environnement. Parce que s'il faut attendre 3 ans pour parler de certains nouveaux services et applications, ça fait long. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me now reverse in English. I have a prepared statement in English, so I will go into that. IQ Telecom World will be held here in Geneva at Expo from 24 to 27 October 2011. There will be a strong focus on high-level networking, knowledge sharing, and consensus building, away from the more exhibition-centered format of previous years. We have, of course, as you know, IQ is a unique place for public sector and private sector to meet. We are the oldest organization of the UN, but we still kept the same formula as we had in the past of having private sector also being part of the union. We have an addition to our 193 now since last week. Since this week we have, last week, I'm sorry, Southern Sudan joined as a newest member, 193. And we have over 700 companies, private companies that are also members of the union, and therefore we work closely with industry. And that's public-private sector networking is one of the features of ITU, and therefore we make use of it at our telecom event. We have here the executive director of telecom, Blaise. Stand up so that people see you. He's behind the scene here, and he will help you, of course, for any questions you might have, offline, online, or offline. And you can feel free to talk to him. He has brought a lot of energy in this youth and energy in this telecom business, and I'm really very much satisfied. And as you know, this is the only ICT event that brings together the right mix of global leaders to discuss and debate the issues facing the ICT industry. This includes, of course, heads of states and heads of governments, heads of the UN agencies, ministers, heads of national regulatory authorities, and because regulators are playing a very key role in this overall strategy. CEOs, of course, and for the first time, we have mayors of cities, city mayors, and what we call digital innovators. Among the industry leaders, we have companies such as Lucent, AT&T, China Mobile, China Interview, Cisco, Datang, Ericsson, Fiber Home, Fujitsu, Huawei, Intel, NTT, NTT Docomo, RIM, Samsung, Satoris, Swisscom, Telecom South Africa, Turk Telecom, TDIA, ZTE, and many more, DU, Etisalat. So we have a very large number of high-level participants from the industry. We have a broadband leadership summit for heads of state and governments, CEOs and major companies and heads of UN agencies. We have a digital cities conference to address how the industry can address the challenges of urbanization. We have a highly dynamic and interactive forum debates and knowledge sharing discussions on major industry themes such as innovation, the business of spectrum. As you know, spectrum will be one of the key problems we're facing now, that everybody is always on the move and always connected. It means there's a lot of pressure on spectrum management. And as you know, ITU is the agency of the UN managing spectrum for all member states. We've been doing that from the birth of radio, and it's working very well. But of course, there is a lot of pressure on new spectrum demand, especially now that we have targeted 2015 for the deadline for digital broadcasting, full digital broadcasting, and many countries are working on that. Next year in January, February, we have our World Radio Conference, which is a very important event that takes place every 3 years to try and come to agreement on spectrum allocations, and the use of digital dividend will be very important in there, and therefore industry will have an opportunity to talk about it now during this telecom. This is simply perfect timing for us. Issues of broadband access, of course. As you know, broadband is a key enabler for all the sectors. Last year, you know that I put together the Broadband Commission for digital dividend, for digital development, together with the Director General of UNESCO. We've put a first report to UN Secretary General on 19 September last year, linking broadband to meeting the Millennium Development Goals. And of course, in the same spirit, I had a commission with the Director General of WHO called the Commission on Information Accountability for Women and Children's Health. Also in the same line, putting ICT at the service of the health sector to try and save lives. So, and also another very important topic that will be discussed during this forum, of course, if you have political leaders and industry leaders together, you will discuss cybersecurity for sure. And this is one of the big themes of this event. There is an in-depth technical symposium on the cutting-edge technological developments which are defining and influencing the future of networks and services. We have Young Innovators and Digital Innovators competition, which will have a total prize money of $50,000, Swiss francs, sorry, to help seed fund great ideas. We have a meta conference involving 10,000 school children around the world who will have the chance to submit their their ideas to global leaders. And this is one of the innovations that I try to bring into telecom. Being in the ICT field, we believe that people need not to come necessarily to the same place to meet, and therefore we're giving the opportunity to 10,000 children around the world to follow and participate in this event live from their home cities. And that will be one of the great innovations we want to put. As you know, in ITU, I have, since my election in 2006, one of the first things I put in place is a paperless environment and remote participation in conferences. All of our works are done in meetings, and therefore we try to make use of the tools that we are advocating ourselves, and it's working. I feel bad that I'm coming here with paper, but it's unusual. My council meeting is taking place this week, since last week and this week, and it's 95% paperless. Just a few delegations ask for paper copies of the documents, and it's working very well. And of course, we have a brand new conference facility as well that was just inaugurated open this week, which will be inaugurated in telecom as well officially. It's a kind donation by the Russian Federation. $5 million put into this conference facility to make it the most high-tech conference facility in the area. So we're very proud of it, and we have tested it. Some of our participants participated, made their contribution from Mexico last week. They didn't have to come here, and they were seeing it live and participating with the PowerPoint presentation, and everything worked out very well. So we are really very proud of this. We have during this conference also 30 national and thematic pavilions showcasing innovation and advancements in connected technologies and how they are being used to improve quality of life in areas such as healthcare, education, finance, and entertainment. Now, 2011, it also marks the 40th anniversary of ITU Telecom. So this event is 40 years old, so it's an opportunity for celebration, and we're going to celebrate that, celebrating those who've been with us for 40 years, and celebrating the newcomers as well, and see how we can see the future for the next 40 years. The event aims at designing what we call a manifesto for the connected world, an international, high-level, diverse and dynamic ecosystem of players from public, private, third sector, global citizens, and attendees will collaboratively design this manifesto, showing how connected technologies have the power to truly change lives. So this is, ladies and gentlemen, the key elements of Telecom World this year, and I hope you guys are going to be there. We have had a very exciting year this year. That we're able to focus the ICT sector virtually in the middle of everything. Well, because we were able to agree with everyone else that we will not be able to meet the Millennium Development Goals in 3 years' time without, in health, for instance, without e-health, in education, without e-education, in government services, without e-government, and any other service. The industry has proven to be very resilient. The financial crisis has not touched the ICT sector. On the contrary, it has grown during that time. In French, they say quelque chose mal à la banque. The truth is, when in difficult financial times, people try to make savings and they cut on travel. If they want to do business, they will have to communicate more. They have to do more video conferencing, more data transfers, and therefore there were more opportunities. Climate change is an issue. First of all, ICT is used for monitoring climate, measuring it, and also helping to mitigate its effects as well. Therefore, ICT becomes another tool for resolving this important problem of our century, climate change. And therefore, there's always new opportunities that are opening up for this sector. Of course, it's driven by innovation, which means that all countries, all nations have the same opportunity, because there is no country or nation or race or culture that has more or less of the brain power that is driving this. It's a matter of putting the right national policy, the right regulatory framework in order to move things forward. And we use the opportunity of telecom to bring in political leaders together with the CEOs of the industries, so that they together see how they can collaboratively work together. And we see their roles are complementary. Government's role is to put the necessary regulatory framework, and private sector is there to invest. And of course, when they are investing, they are making profits, but they will create services and applications. We are very proudly telling everyone that there is something to gain for everyone in it. We all become winners in it, and we're able to pass that message really. This is what we've done in our Connect the World series. In 2007, we launched Connect Africa, followed by Connect CIS. Next year, we'll have Connect Arab Region and Connect Americas summits. These are regional summits to try and see at the regional level where we are, which direction we want to go, what are the necessary policy and regulatory framework we need to put in place, harmonize them so to have large-scale effects. What are the regional projects we need to undertake together to move forward? So this industry, I always say, has not gone through any crisis for one simple reason. It's well regulated, not too much regulated, because we don't need too much regulation. It's also dangerous. We believe that the financial sector had its crisis because of lack of regulation as well. But we need to caution people around against too much regulation as well. Heavy-handed regulation is not necessary. And our industry has been able to maneuver through that very well. So we hope that will continue.
Sir, could we have a question and answer?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Please, when you ask your question, introduce yourself.
Yeah.
Et bonjour, Daniel Vernus, là je travaillerai pour le magazine professionnel Edito en Suisse. Et la question c'est sur ce projet de manifeste que vous avez. Est-ce que c'est le changement, c'est pour vous de connecter toujours plus 7 milliards d'habitants 24 heures sur 24, ou bien est-ce que c'est humaniser le secteur digital, réconcilier la technique et les contenus? Voilà, est-ce que vous pouvez en dire plus?
Vous savez, notre devise, c'est quoi? C'est connecter le monde. Nous sommes engagés à connecter le monde. Et nous avons comme ambition que les 7 milliards d'habitants de cette planète soient tous connectés. Ça veut dire quoi? Nous rentrons dans la société de la connaissance. On sort de la société de l'information pour entrer dans la société de la connaissance. Ça veut dire quoi? Chaque habitant de cette planète est connecté, mais connecté n'est pas suffisant. Il faut utiliser l'information. Peut utiliser l'information, peut créer l'information, parce que chaque habitant de cette planète est une source potentielle de création d'information. Et ça, c'est très important. C'est là qu'on joue le rôle important de cette connaissance, de la connaissance. Et le dernier élément, évidemment, c'est le partage de cette information. Il faut savoir share information. Et cela veut dire que le contenu et l'infrastructure se joignent. C'est pourquoi vous voyez l'UIT a comme vocation principale de s'occuper de l'infrastructure. Et c'est pourquoi nous avons fait alliance avec l'UNESCO pour créer la commission programme. Parce que l'UNESCO, nous savons que l'UNESCO viendra avec son côté contenu, ce qui est l'éducation, la science et la culture. C'est pourquoi nous avons fait alliance avec l'OMS pour créer la commission pour la santé de la femme et de l'enfant. Et donc, nous travaillons beaucoup avec toutes les autres agences et tous les stakeholders afin que nous puissions travailler ensemble. Et c'est ça qui est une des grandes questions qui se pose chaque fois que nous débattons de la question du contenu. Les gens, la limite est en train d'être comment on appelle ça en français, blurred, hein? D'être flou maintenant. La limite est très floue. Le contenu sans l'infrastructure ne pourra pas être véhiculé et l'infrastructure sans contenu ne sert à rien absolument. Donc c'est une complémentarité sur laquelle nous jouons beaucoup.
Oui. Freddy Moulongo, Réveil FM International, Paris et puis Kinshasa RDC. Monsieur Hammadoun Touré, 3 petites questions. La première, c'est que l'UIT a dit il y a quelques années qu'on devait passer de l'analogique au numérique. Je voulais savoir, par rapport aux pays africains, est-ce qu'ils seront vraiment à jour par rapport à cela? Quels sont les pays qui sont en tête par rapport à cette évolution? La deuxième question, c'est est-ce que l'UIT, en donnant des fréquences aux pays, réclame quand même un contrepartie? Parce qu'on voit quand même en ce qui concerne les fréquences au niveau de pays africains, on est effaré de voir que des chefs d'État, des ministres, des sénateurs, de députés créent des radios et des télévisions pour leur propagande, alors que la fréquence est donnée pour tout le monde. La troisième et dernière question, c'est par rapport au terrorisme. On sait par exemple qu'en Afghanistan, on coupe les téléphones à la population pour qu'elle n'ait pas accès aux informations et que les talibans puissent se déplacer facilement. Est-ce que vous avez aussi des études là-dessus pour que les fréquences, comme vous dites, soient accessibles à tout le monde?
Merci, monsieur. Vous avez posé 3 questions très pertinentes. La première question sur le passage de l'analogique au numérique. Cela a été décidé depuis l'an 2000 au sein de l'UIT. Et je suis heureux de vous dire que le plan de mettre cela en exécution à l'horizon 2015 est en cours. Et la plupart des pays sont préparés du point de vue de la disponibilité de l'information. Nous avons fait des business cases pour démontrer que le passage de l'analogique au numérique a plusieurs avantages. Ce n'est pas seulement du point de vue des fréquences que ça va économiser, qui pourront être utilisées à d'autres fins, ce qu'on appelle le digital dividend, la dividende numérique aujourd'hui, mais aussi du point de vue des nouvelles possibilités que cela offre aux radiodiffuseurs, puisque c'est eux que ça concerne surtout, les radiodiffusions et télévisions, où nous avons la possibilité avec la numérisation d'avoir un coefficient de multiplication de circuits qui va de 7 jusqu'à 10, c'est-à-dire que dans la même fréquence, vous pouvez avoir jusqu'à 10 canaux en utilisant les fréquences, les techniques numériques. Nous avons aussi les économies d'énergie. Et c'est ça le plus important maintenant que nous parlons de changement climatique. Il est important de noter que le passage de l'analogique au numérique permettra d'économiser jusqu'à 60% de l'énergie actuelle d'électricité. C'est-à-dire que la consommation d'électricité d'un émetteur numérique est 60% inférieure à celui d'un émetteur analogique. Tout si on ajoute le coefficient de multiplication, c'est-à-dire que Et on peut avoir 10 circuits supplémentaires en utilisant la même fréquence. C'est fabuleux du point de vue économique. Et à cause de cela, nous avons démontré aux pays en développement qu'en budgétisant seulement sur les économies d'énergie, ils peuvent payer au bout de entre 8 et 10 ans le coût des équipements numériques qu'ils vont acheter. Et donc, la question est de savoir quel modèle de business, quel business model il faut mettre en place pour financer le passage au numérique. Et il y a plusieurs pays qui voient des modèles qui vont tels que vers des accords avec des fabricants qui permettraient de faire un prêt à long terme et qui paieront sur la durée en tenant compte des économies d'énergie. Les pays africains sont au même niveau que beaucoup de pays dans le monde entier. Nous avons des pays comme l'Afrique du Sud ou le Nigeria qui ont déjà fait le basculement au numérique pour ce qui est des transmissions, du point de vue de transmission. Évidemment, ils sont en train de prendre d'autres mesures pour que les utilisateurs aussi aient des équipements adéquats pour cela. Et donc, je suis très très optimiste à cela. Il y aura un temps de passage qu'il faudrait essayer de raccourcir le plus possible. Pendant ce temps-là, il y aura des gens qui auront des utilisateurs qui seront obligés d'avoir des set-top box qui permettront de pouvoir passer cette période de transition. Donc, mais il faut la minimiser le plus possible. Votre deuxième question était sur les fréquences. Les fréquences, si l'UIT prend des machins en contrepartie, non. L'UIT gère les fréquences au nom de tous les pays du monde et donne les allocations possibles. Et c'est au niveau des autorités de régulation que nous donnons, au niveau des autorités de régulation, qu'ils donnent les fréquences au niveau du pays. Évidemment, nous gérons techniquement cela parce que nous nous assurons qu'il n'y a pas de problème d'interférence. Donc tous les calculs d'interférence et de brouillage se font au niveau de l'UIT pour qu'on s'assure qu'il y a une communication qui se fait de façon fiable. Et comme vous le voyez, nous l'avons géré si bien jusque-là, quand vous appuyez n'importe quel canal sur votre remote control chez vous, pour la télévision, le canal votre canal préféré est toujours le même. Et il y a très rarement des brouillages. Et cela se fait aussi dans la gestion des satellites, la gestion orbitale des satellites et la gestion des fréquences à ce niveau-là. C'est des calculs très complexes qui se font au sein de l'Union. En 2007, nous avons même fait appel au supercomputer du CERN pour pouvoir vérifier nos logiciels que nous avions. Et nous sommes très heureux de vous dire que les calculs sont venus au même niveau. Donc, et de toute façon, la pratique nous montre que les résultats sont bons. Tout cela se gère au niveau des commissions d'études. Évidemment, cela n'est pas payé par les États membres du tout. Vous avez parlé d'une question très importante qui est la cybersécurité, en fait. Quand vous parlez de terrorisme et de l'accès, je dirais plutôt ça c'est la cybersécurité qui sera un des thèmes qui sera discuté pendant le sommet Télécom ici. Parce que la cybersécurité, c'est peut-être le plus grand challenge auquel nous allons faire face en tant qu'humanité, parce que nous sommes tout le temps connectés. Nos enfants sont connectés dans la sécurité de leur chambre à coucher ou de leur classe. On se doit de les sécuriser. Et donc, du point de vue cybersécurité, nous essayons de mettre un plan mondial ensemble pour que les pays partagent les best pratiques, les meilleures pratiques, afin de pouvoir vraiment faire face à cette question-là, qui est une question pour tout le monde. Et vous savez, dans ce domaine-là, le criminel peut ne pas être sur le lieu du crime. Le criminel peut être dans un territoire complètement en dehors du territoire où il fait ses crimes. Et donc, il faut un environnement international pour pouvoir faire face à ce problème. Je dis toujours que c'est un problème global et ça peut avoir seulement qu'une solution globale.
Yes.
Hello. My name is Hiro Maiga. I'm a engineering correspondent for the Asahi Shimbun Japanese newspaper. And I have a question on the regulation. That you have touched upon a remark that the heavy-handed regulation is not necessary. But I keep hearing from especially from the developing world, where the freedom of press or freedom of speech is not completely established. I hear from the government that the internet should be regulated properly or whatever it is. And do you believe that, I don't understand the complete nature of this conference yet, but do you believe that under this event, some discussion, or I don't know, an outcome of some round table on the ministerial level, do you believe some kind of regular discussion or some, I don't know, some papers or some outcome that could refer to the regulation of the internet?
We talk about regulation of ICT in general, but not particularly regulation of internet. As you know, ITU is very much committed to the freedom of expression and freedom of circulation of information. I think I was one of the first to condemn the Egyptian government when they cut off the internet, the telecommunication, and both fixed and mobile phones at the same time. I was first to issue a press release, and I was calling the minister regularly to try and tell him that it's not acceptable. And we continue to do so. It's important that we have international benchmarks for that. But having said that, this is not an issue for developing countries alone, because freedom of expression is not an issue for one country. All countries, I think, have same things in it. We need to make sure that people share some values. That's one of the things that we tackle when we are dealing with cybersecurity, for instance. When you're talking about cybersecurity in our global cybersecurity agenda, you know there is a very fine line between privacy and security. And we always say there's a need for capacity building, there's a need for legal and regulatory framework, but also there is a need for agreement on ethical issues as well, because different people may have different ethical approach into this, and we always advocate that, and we make sure that our constituencies are aware of those sensitivities, and they need to work it out together, so that the things that in these areas there are so many things in common. They tend to spend too much time on things that they don't agree on, but we have many things that I agree on. And we have been able to move the agenda forward, especially in the cybersecurity, in taking the areas where we all agree. When there was too much discussion on debates on cybersecurity, what I did was to put children on the table, child online protection, because it's urgent for all of us. We can find common ground if we know that they are all vulnerable. Children are the most likely to give away information on themselves or their families to people they have never met in the cyberspace. And yet we have to protect them. And therefore, and everybody agrees on that, when we put a good framework to protect children, that's what I did initially, that I called the COP, Child Online Protection. If we are able to protect children in the cyberspace, put a good cybersecurity framework for children, the same framework would work for anything else. That's the approach we'll be taking, so that we'll be working as we are talking. Otherwise, we'll simply spend endless time in debates on definitions, what is a crime sometimes. So that's the step that we've taken in order for us to really do something tangible. And that's what we're not so far.
Yeah, so does that mean you're going to have to communicate with some press release after this event that covering that issues?
Sorry?
Does that mean you're going to have a communique or any kind of press release that round up those discussions that we have said about regulation?
All of the issues that we'll be talking, of course, we'll have summaries of the discussion there, and it will help us for the ways forward. Okay. All of these debates, discussions are actually things that are already in different pipelines in the ITU being discussed, and therefore they will help us to reach that multi-stakeholder status in terms of debates that will enable us to take into account the views of everyone else.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
John.
Yes, good afternoon, John Zarakos. I'm a freelance writer. I'd like to come back up to the issue you just mentioned. It's a fine line between privacy and regulatory oversight. I was wondering what's your experience on the fact that in major advanced economies, the security services are intercepting, in some cases, up to 99% of all internet traffic and most mobile traffic. What are the guidelines recommended by the IT here on this? Thank you.
We have not issued specific guidelines on that. What we're trying to do is to have a exchange of views on the policy challenges on this area. What I said was there is a fine line between privacy and security. Maybe I don't know what you interpreted there.
Well, I meant interceptions without a warrant or a paper from a judge. In other words, clandestine intercepts of civilian communication.
Yeah. And this is what I meant by talking about the how do you call it? When I was mentioning the policy issues, I was talking about the ethical approach on it, because that's the ethical issue here. And we're trying to make sure that countries have common approach on those ethical issues. And this is why I want training, to do training on those issues. Because that's where there's a fine, we always say there's a fine line between privacy and security, because while you are looking for an information on a criminal activity, you might come across activity that is not, you might come across information that is not of criminal nature. How do you handle that? That's different countries have different approaches to that, and we're trying to make sure there is a common understanding of this. One of the things that I launched a few years ago, the idea that I launched was how do you call it, a global cyber security framework. And while I'm debating this with many people, some countries are telling me, of course, it's really difficult to have a global agreement or a treaty. I was even talking about a treaty, a cyber peace treaty, in a provocative manner, because I know it's difficult for people to come enter into treaty. But I just wanted for people to do something while we're debating. And one of the things that I came across, it was advice from a very wise prime minister. I will not necessarily name his name here, but he told me that the best thing, the best approach for this is to come what he called the 3 C's, Common Code of Conduct. It's a soft way, but it's enabled people to at least discuss and agree on definitions. So I call it actually not the 3 C's, but the 5 C's. In analogy to the action line on cybersecurity that is assigned to ITU from the World Summit on Information Society. As you know, there were 11 action lines, and the action line C5 is about cybersecurity, providing security in the cyberspace, and it's assigned to ITU. So in dealing with C5, I was saying 5 C's, Common Code of Conduct against cybercrime. So, I mean, that's how we're dealing with this. So, in order to get people to really come in common agreement to these things, I think you have to take into account their local culture and everything else. But I always say by debating, you will always come to common agreement. And it's better to start with the thing that we have in common, so that we move forward. Otherwise, we'll have endless debate. And as we're debating, criminals are working, unfortunately, against our children, against our businesses, against our countries. So that's the key issue that I'm facing here. So that, and different cultures may have different definitions on this. Of course, during telecom, we use the opportunity because you will have many organizations that are dealing with, you have organizations like UNODC, I had an MOU with UNODC in May this year to deal with cybersecurity. They're dealing with their part of cybercrime, and we're dealing with cybersecurity in general, and trying to coordinate. We have a center in Malaysia called Impact, which is helping countries technically to set up that technical setup and sharing capacity building programs as well. We are working with other organizations first in the US to make sure that we bring in their technical expertise and share it with others, so that even countries who do not have necessarily the same ideological approaches can come in agree, and they do that in ITU. After all, we are the only place where people come and talk to each other. We survived. We say we are the oldest organization of the UN. It means that we survived the 2 world wars, and we survived the 80 years of also of Cold War. And while people are working together to create global standards, if they don't have global standards, they cannot even talk to each other. The phones will not connect if they don't have common standards. And we have done tremendous things in that area, in terms of standardization. Spectrum. If we don't have a common agreement in spectrum allocation, everybody will use something and frequency as he wishes, and there will be interferences everywhere. And it has worked because everyone knows that if you follow the global structure that we are putting in place, not only you will not harm your enemies, but you will not harm your friends as well, and you will not harm yourself. And so that has been a very good culture in the Union.
Yes.
Yes, Lydia Dmitrichev from TASS News Agency from Russia. We know that Russia increased financial contribution to ITU, and I would like to know, will have some reflex on the Russian participation on the telecom? And the second question is about Popov conference room, when it will begin functioning.
Yeah, the Popov room is already functioning. We have named, and this is one of the things that real innovation that I tried to bring when I came to ITU. I mean, our conference rooms are named A, B, C, D, E. We're engineers, we're dealing with technical things. And, I thought that why not name our conference rooms after the great scientists that have worked in the field, and have the countries sponsor those rooms. So I hope to have a Graham Bell room, a Marconi room, a Maxwell room, all of those, and the Popov room is one of the first in the series, and I hope that many countries will follow. Popov is, of course, one of the great Russian scientists who was behind the invention of radio back in 1895. He demonstrated his first radio in the yard of the University of St. Petersburg. I studied in St. Petersburg, so I went to this place, and I know where it is, where he demonstrated the first radio. There are many other great inventors in this field who would really have a place in the Union, and I'm promoting that. I'm very pleased that Russian Federation has very much supported the Union. I've met personally with Prime Minister Putin here in June in Geneva, and he's given us a very strong support in many of the areas that we are doing, and also given us also the support, financial support as well. The increase of contributory units of Russia comes right at a time when we're debating our budget. I can tell you that my budget has been approved this morning. My next biennial budget it's a balanced budget, and I can say it's been approved without a fight. It's due to the real trust that our members have in us, and I'm very pleased with that. Since I came on board in 2007, we never had any financial crisis in the Union. It's because I wanted to have more transparency. Our membership demanded more transparency. When I was running for Secretary General, I thought that it is their money and we should show them where it goes. And I put my experience from the private sector, because I came from private sector directly to ITU. I put that experience in there, in the management of the Union. And I'm pleased to say that they have a very strong trust from our members. Back in 2007, when I presented my first budget, India was first to take the floor, saying that the type of transparency we needed from this organization, we are doubling our financial contribution from 5 units to 10 units. It was followed by countries like Korea and some other smaller countries. This late contribution from Russia is another testimony that we are trying to show to our members that where their money goes, and it's the less we can do. The organization is in very good financial state today. Our the next 2 years biennium budget is balanced, as I said. And I also took the opportunity to present actually 4-year, instead of 2 years, 4-year budget, so that we all know our financial plan is over 4 years' time, as it was presented at the Plenipotentiary Conference last year. And therefore, to make sure that we have real confidence in the Union and we can move forward very safely. So I'm a happy man. I know some of my sister organizations are not in the same situation that I'm fortunately, but we are in very good shape. And this is a difficult organization because our members' contribution is not a set contribution like proportional to a number in their economic indicators. No, it's a voluntary. Every country in ITU decide how much you're going to put in the union, and therefore, if you don't have a very good management of the funds of the union, they will stop funding it, and we are not in that situation. So I'm very pleased with that.
Frank, we have a lot of questions for that. Thank you.
Just a quick one on telecoms.
On telecom?
Yeah.
Okay.
Frank Jordan, JP. Telecoms was kind of on the front pages of the newspapers last week when BlackBerry had its big outage and people around the world sort of found themselves unable to message and use the other sort of services that they became used to. Do you see any push to force big operators like BlackBerry's parent company to guarantee basic standards of service for something that is used by millions of people, including emergency services and
well, all companies. It's not only big companies. All companies have that obligation. Actually, every regulatory authority put these obligations in their as conditions to the license in most of the countries, and I see that will happen. What you were talking about last week was a technical problem. Of course, they would want to avoid those technical problems, but they happen. That's why you need to have more diversity, and many countries are doing it. That's why there are many operators. Competition will enable these things. There are some other implications, consequences of competition, of course, which is enable governments, or I should say regulators, to impose a minimum service quality, a guaranteed service quality from all operators, whether the signals are coming from their customers or from customers from others. We've seen that, and of course that's in line with ITU's policy. This is why we're standardizing. If you standardize, you come towards the same service quality. At least minimum service quality is guaranteed, and therefore we are strong advocate of that.
Dan, please.
Yes, Mr. Touré, I just want to follow up on my Japanese colleague's question and your comment to him that the situation, for example, in Egypt was not acceptable in terms of the censorship. I'm wondering if you also, what your thoughts are on a slightly more vague situation, but important one, where you have a major company such as Google, which is left China, and according to them, they were forced out of China because of censorship, because their customers were not allowed to access information, and because they claimed it subject to cyber attack, an organized cyber attack from